There was once a man whose life seemed to balance between two worlds. To those who knew him personally, he was quiet, humble, and deeply religious, a man who spent his days working ordinary jobs and supporting his family. But to countless others, he became known as someone extraordinary, someone who could close his eyes, slip into sleep, and awaken to a realm of knowledge that few could touch. His name was Edgar Cayce, and even decades after his death, his story continues to fascinate and unsettle those who encounter it. Cayce himself never claimed to be special. He did not describe his gift as something he created or controlled. Instead, he said it was something that happened to him, something he surrendered to. When he allowed himself to enter a deep trance, his ordinary awareness faded, and his words began to flow from a source he described as universal truth. While his body lay still, his spirit seemed to travel to a dimension of pure information. From there, he returned with insights on healing, spirituality, reincarnation, and even prophecies about the future of humanity and the earth itself. Over the course of his life, Cayce gave more than 14,000 readings. These were carefully recorded, transcribed, and preserved, forming one of the largest collections of psychic material in history. Many of his readings dealt with physical health, offering natural remedies and dietary advice long before holistic medicine became popular. But mixed among these practical healings were messages of an entirely different nature. They spoke of vast earth changes, spiritual reckonings, and the ultimate destiny of nations. Some of these messages were cryptic, wrapped in symbols and strange metaphors, but others were remarkably direct. Among his most sobering prophecies was one concerning the United States. He foresaw a collapse, not necessarily brought on by war or sudden catastrophe, but by a much slower, quieter unraveling. He spoke of a fracture that would begin within the hearts of the people themselves, a decay of unity and values that would eventually ripple outward, reshaping the very land they lived upon. It would not happen all at once, like the sudden strike of lightning, but gradually, like a silent clock ticking toward an unseen hour. To many who study his work today, this idea feels uncomfortably close to the reality we now face. Look at the society around us. Political division so deep that neighbors become enemies. Trust in institutions eroding year after year. Corruption exposed yet rarely punished, and a growing sense that the foundations we once relied on are cracking beneath our feet. Cayce warned that these were the true early signs of collapse, the invisible tremors that come before the earth itself begins to shake. He once said that the destruction of great cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York would come, but not before a moral and spiritual decline had taken root. At the time, his words seemed outrageous. These cities were centers of industry, culture, and power. But Cayce was insistent. He spoke of earthquakes striking in unexpected places, seas swallowing coastlines, and waters rising to cover entire regions. Yet he always emphasized that the spiritual breakdown would come first. The rot of materialism, greed, and dishonesty would weaken the soul of a nation, making it unable to withstand the physical trials that would follow. This perspective was unusual. Cayce did not see natural disasters as random accidents. He described the earth itself as alive and responsive, reflecting the condition of humanity like a mirror. When a society falls into corruption and division, the land trembles. When hatred and greed dominate the human spirit, storms rise, seas swell, and the ground shifts. Not as punishment from above, but as a balancing act, a natural response to imbalance. And so we must ask, does this sound familiar today? Consider the fires that rage across entire states, the hurricanes that seem to grow stronger every year, the floods that appear where they never did before, and the earthquakes that rattle regions thought to be safe. In 2011, a rare quake struck Virginia and cracked the Washington Monument itself, a symbolic tremor in the heart of American power. Tornadoes now sweep across states where such storms had no history. These may be dismissed as chance, but Cayce's vision suggests they are part of a larger pattern, early hints of a deeper transformation already underway. One of his most striking warnings focused on the New Madrid fault line in the Mississippi River Valley. Cayce predicted that this fault would awaken, causing the river to swell and the land to sink, effectively splitting the nation in two. History gives weight to this prediction. In 1811 and 1812, the New Madrid fault produced quakes so violent that they changed the course of the Mississippi River, making it flow backwards for a time. Scientists today recognize this fault as one of the most dangerous in North America, and many admit that another major event is not a question of if, but when. For Cayce, such a quake would not only divide the land but also symbolize the deeper division of the people themselves. Yet he was clear, physical destruction was only the second act. The first was spiritual decay. America, in his eyes, was entrusted with a unique mission, to be a land of freedom, not just political freedom, but spiritual freedom. A land where truth, justice, and compassion could guide humanity into a higher way of living. But if greed replaced generosity, if power replaced wisdom, if deception replaced truth, then that mission would be lost, and the nation would collapse under its own weight. Cayce spoke of great changes beginning in the oceans, spreading toward the poles and reshaping the Earth itself. Today we witness ice melting in Antarctica and the Arctic at alarming rates, raising seas that swallow coastlines year by year. He warned of Japan facing disaster, and we saw the Fukushima catastrophe, followed by relentless pressure from rising seas and earthquakes. He said the lower United States would shake, and now seismic unrest spreads through the Gulf and Midwest. He warned of New York disappearing, and we have already seen storms like Hurricane Sandy flooding its streets as tides continue their quiet erosion. Maps drawn from his predictions paint a transformed America. California's coast fractured, Florida largely gone, New York erased, and the Mississippi widened into a vast inland sea stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. The continent itself divided, its familiar shape altered forever. Yet even here, Cayce offered hope. He described safe zones, particularly in the Midwest, places like Arkansas and Missouri, that he believed would become centers of new spiritual energy. Out of the chaos, he foresaw renewal. For even in his darkest warnings, Cayce never spoke only of destruction. He believed collapse was not an ending, but a transition. He envisioned a future in which a new group of people, awakened to higher consciousness, would rise. These individuals, united not by politics or religion but by compassion and truth, would become the hope of the world. He believed many of them were already living among us, quietly preparing for the time when their light would be needed most. Cayce also believed that time itself was not linear, but cyclical. Events repeat until humanity learns the lessons they carry. Some disasters can be delayed if enough people awaken and choose differently, but others are inevitable, bound to unfold when the spiral tightens. Looking at the present moment, political chaos, social division, environmental upheaval, it seems as though we are approaching one of those tightening spirals, what Cayce called the Great Reckoning. A time when humanity would be forced to face itself, when the earth would demand balance. And yet, at the core of his teaching, there was always a message of empowerment. He said, "Know yourself, that you may heal your land." In his view, the destiny of nations was not decided only by governments or powerful leaders. It rested in the collective vibration of individuals. Every soul contributes to the whole. Every act of kindness, every expression of truth, every moment of compassion ripples outward into the greater world. The countdown, then, is not written in a calendar or marked by a date. It is unfolding right now in the choices humanity makes each day, If division, corruption, and hatred continue to grow, the cracks will widen and the collapse will accelerate. But if enough people awaken, if enough remember compassion, unity, and truth, then renewal is possible. Not a return to the old world, but the birth of something new, something more aligned with the higher purpose Cayce believed humanity was meant to embody. Perhaps that is why you are listening now. Perhaps some part of you recognizes the weight of this moment and feels the pull of responsibility. Cayce did not speak of collapse as an ending, but as a passage, a crossing into something greater. And so, we are not meant to hide from it or deny it. We are meant to move through it together, with eyes wide open, hearts awake, and a determination to carry forward the light that can guide us into a new age.